So it's safe to say y'all know me as Waluigi the Master, the Nintendo YouTuber, the guy who talks about Mario games, the guy who talks about Mario Kart games, right? Well, what exactly got me into video games in the first place? It wasn't really Nintendo, though the Nintendo Wii was a big part of my childhood when I first got it around the time I was 8 years old. But we gotta go back a little earlier than that. We gotta go back to the days of PopCap. Now imagine, if you will, a world before these things have taken over. Imagine, if you will, a world where you actually paid for a video game straight up and didn't have to make purchases within the game. I'm looking at you. Well, let me take you back to the days of PopCap. Growing up, there were 4 series that I loved from PopCap. I'm going to discuss each of them and what my opinion is sort of my least important to me, all the way up to the most important game, although all 4 are pretty awesome. Now, the least important to me of the 4 were the games Zuma and Zuma's Revenge. Now, that does not mean I think they're bad by any means, like I said, but the match 3 kind of thing has never been my kind of game. It's a little simplistic, and that's basically what this is, a match 3 kind of game. And I should mention that PopCap is great for its simplicity, but match 3 goes a bit far in that endeavor. Still, this match 3 game is better than, say, the ultra-popular Candy Crush, or even PopCap's own game, Bejeweled. There's actual boss battles in this game which feel intense, and overall this game just has you on your toes a good bit more than the average match 3 kind of game. I'll tell you what I mean by that. You lose in Candy Crush because, aw, you didn't get enough candy, you didn't get a high enough score, wife is sad. You lose in Zuma when your balls get sucked into a pit. I mean, the balls in the game. You get what I'm saying. One more thing that I particularly liked about Zuma was the music and sound effects from this game, which you'll hear me talk about with the other 3 games as well. The general feeling of intensity can be felt right before you start a level. I mean, just listen to this. Epic. Now, let's talk about game series number 3, which is the Peggle Nights series. This game, much like Zuma, it's all about the simplicity, but with an extra hint of complication. See, the goal is quite simple: shoot at the pegs and try to clear all the red ones before you run out of balls. But there are 2 green pegs in each level that help activate a superpower, and there's 10 different characters that each have a different one, 11 in Peggle Nights. Personally, my favorite is Renfield the Pumpkin, who allows you to essentially get 2 shots at the board. It allows for epic highlights like this. Now, the art style and music in Peggle is what truly makes this game an enjoyable experience, though. Like Zuma, you're probably not going to be playing this game for hours at a time if it doesn't have a nice presentation. You'd just get bored of it after a while. But Peggle and Peggle Nights do indeed have a nice presentation, which makes you think, time to sit back, relax, and just enjoy yourself. The backgrounds in all the levels are really interesting and detailed, and the colors are bright and vibrant. The music definitely goes for a more relaxing vibe than Zuma, and it fits the general chill theme that this game presents. I mean, from the very beginning, the music we hear is the Ode to Joy, and the sound effects, don't get me started on those. That's what makes Peggle Peggle. You hear those noises just get more and more exciting when you get more and more pegs, and it is a thing of beauty. Now we gotta talk about game series number 2, Bookworm Adventures Volumes 1 and 2. Now let me compare this to another modern mobile game, Words with Friends. You might know Words with Friends. It's a ripoff of Scrabble, no real original idea, no charming graphics or sound effects, and there's ads unless, you pay a premium. This is the mobile gaming age that we live in, but back in 2006, a good old game called Bookworm Adventures came out, and it had really original ideas for a word kind of game. You, an adorable bookworm named Lex, spell words, you defeat the enemies. Again, it's pretty simple. And yet you get gems to help you defeat the enemies by poisoning them and burning them and freezing them. Yay! Although, watch out, because the enemies also like poisoning and burning and freezing you. That's the simple beauty of this game. You also select 3 treasures that help defeat the enemy before you start each voyage. It can help you do things like boost the power of your words or reduce damage taken from your enemies. Now, before I go on about this game, I would actually like to give a quick shout out to a YouTuber called D Donut. He does awesome Bookworm Adventures videos. He's like the best at the game in like the entire world. But since Bookworm Adventures is sort of a lesser known game, I don't know. But you gotta check him out though, because he's awesome at this game. Like way better than me. Anyway, Bookworm Adventures Volume 1 came out in 2006. Volume 2 came out in 2009. And I distinctly remember that game coming out when I was a 7-year-old. I'm pretty sure that at that point I had already beaten Volume 1 of that game despite being only 7. I was pretty good with words and vocabulary as a little kid, and I've always been like a nerd and a good writer, so, it fit me. I played Volume 2, and it was just as fun, if not more fun, than Volume 1. And if you thought the art style in Peggle was good, the art in this game is even more engaging. The different backgrounds and enemies, all awesome stuff. The sound effects go super well with the game, and the music can be borderline epic sometimes. Let me show you one of my favorite themes from this game, the boss battle from Book 5 in Volume 2. But none of those 3 games can defeat the GOAT. The very best PopCap game, one of the best video games I've ever played. And I swear it is not just the childhood nostalgia speaking. 'Cause boy do I love Plants vs. Zombies. What an incredible game, and it definitely deserves to be known as PopCap's masterpiece. The artwork, the gameplay, the music, the depth. This game had it all. There's 50 adventure mode levels where you unlock tons of different plants to fight tons of different zombies. It's pretty neat. I remember this game coming out in that glorious year 2009. Good old childhood memories. But it goes beyond that, as this game, in my opinion, has more depth than the other 3 I talked about. There's tons of awesome mini-games to complete. There's a Zen garden to tend to, all that good stuff. And then there's the bad boy, survival mode. And more specifically, survival endless. I think my high score at one point was about 60 waves of zombies killed. I can probably do more with the right strategy, but, oh well, I guess. Everything in this game went above and beyond anything I'd played as a kid up until this point. Little 7-year-old Waluigi the Master hadn't played a game that was so bright and colorful, had so much detail to it, had really fun music and sound effects. I remember the joy I felt the first time I heard the "We Don't Want Zombies on Your Lawn" song. I had beaten the game, and again, this is the simple joy at PopCap Games. A 7-year-old can beat it without any major difficulties. And yet, one of my first memories of this game is actually me hating it, believe it or not. I was still a stupid little kid in some ways, so I didn't understand how sunflowers worked at first. I actually lost on level 1-2 because I didn't understand I was supposed to plant sunflowers in order to gain sun, in order to plant pea shooters. I had to have my dad explain to me, now, this is what sunflowers are for. And after I understood that, everything after it all made sense. Yes, in a world before EA took over, everything made sense. But they kinda did wreck PopCap when they bought them for a cool $600 million back in 2011. The whole gaming market was starting to turn towards those soulless match 3 games like Candy Crush, or really overly simplistic games like Fruit Ninja, because we were now in the era of mobile games. And EA capitalized off of this by making Plants vs. Zombies 2 back in 2013, which was really worse than the original. It had a lot of cool new ideas, but I'm sure actual dedicated fans of the series would have loved to have just spent $20 straight up like in the good old days and just enjoyed the game. But no, not in the era of mobile gaming. In-app purchases and all that other fakaktamania. Again, it's the same kind of stuff we're seeing in Mario Kart Tour. And in Plants vs. Zombies Heroes, a spin-off card game which I was frickin' addicted to a couple years ago. Oh yeah, EA did it to me. They got me hooked. Probably at least 40 total bucks was spent on that game for me. I'm ashamed to admit it, but it's true. Now that game was particularly good gameplay-wise, but the whole in-app purchases, grinding on ads, it's taken the soul out of these games. I wanted to focus mostly on the positives these games were for my childhood, so I'll stop with the ranting. But seriously, I kinda miss the days before cell phones. You'd buy a game on a computer, and you'd just play it. I mean, I guess there's Steam for that, but still. I miss the glory days of PopCap. What do you think, folks? Have you played PopCap games? Do you miss them days? Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Bye-bye.